Let us join in a spirit of meditation, reflection, or prayer as we deepen into our service and share our opening words for this morning. The reading this morning comes from Patience, from the book Perseverance by Margaret Wheatley. And Margaret Wheatley is an American writer, teacher, speaker, and global citizen. Perseverance is a journey seemingly without end. Yet it has a few distinctions or rewards, one of which is patience. It's not that we start out patient. We don't persevere because we are patient people. We become patient because we have to. There is no choice. The work is endless. Every day we have to make a choice. Will we give up or will we keep going? When day after day we are willing to keep going, we discover, quite to our amazement, that we have become patient. And then we just continue on, day after day. We join Unitarian and Unitarian Universalists all over the world in lighting our chalice. Would Marnie Peel please come up to light the chalice, which is a symbol of the spark of life in each of us. If you are on Zoom and have your chalice with you, I invite you to turn on your video to share while we light them. We are in good company. Our chalice lighting words this morning are from the Oberlin Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Oberlin, Ohio. We light this chalice to find inner peace, love for each other, and faith in ourselves. Also to be welcoming to whomever we meet and kind to all living creatures. So gather around this light of hope as we share this time together.
We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
And so our adaptive program this morning is our speaker that we'll see on the screen is Cameron Young. And Cameron Young is on the congregational life staff of the UU's Southern region. He is a lifelong Unitarian Universalist and currently is a seminarian at Bright Divinity School in Fort Worth, Texas. And he's speaking, as I said, on adaptive ministry.
In her book, Emergent Strategy, writer, doula, and Black feminist activist Adrienne Murray Brown speaks of the scientific phenomenon known as fractals, which she defines as objects or quantities that display self-similarity, which means it looks roughly the same at any scale. A fern is an example she provides for fractals. If you look at a fern through a microscope, it will reproduce an identical pattern as the large-scale object. Another concept she uses is biomimicry. Brown contextualizes biomimicry to suggest that when systems and institutions bump up against design flaws, they can look at ecosystems, including micro ecosystems that have already solved this challenge. Answers to the problems that plague our world can literally be found in nature, and even in the most microscopic organisms who solve these problems efficiently and cohesively. The church as fractal is a good metaphor for how we want to be in the world. We seek to create beloved community among ourselves and through our relationships in hopes that the world will replicate. A quote often attributed to Gandhi is, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." However, the actual quote reads, "We but mirror the world. All the tendencies present in the outer world are to be found in the world of our body. If we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. As one changes their own nature, so does the attitude of the world change towards them. This is the divine mystery supreme. A wonderful thing it is and the source of our happiness. We need not wait to see what others do." Brown also uses an analogy of a spider web. When one strand of the web is broken, the entire web is prone to collapse. When we in UU Spaces speak of our seventh principle, belief in the interdependent web of all existence, we're not merely speaking in metaphors. Our existences are intricately woven with all life. When violence, oppression, and marginalization occur elsewhere in the world, we are consciously and unconsciously bound to it, and vice versa. Brown tells us that when we speak of systemic change, we need to be fractal. The same spirals on seashells can be found in the shape of galaxies. We must create patterns that cycle upwards. So someone who identifies as transgender, specifically non-binary or not male nor female, Unitarian Universalism was one of the first spaces I could show up authentically in, give me language for my own experience, and thus empowering me to be myself out in the world. At the 2017 General Assembly in New Orleans, we changed the language for the second of 6 sources in our faith, from words and deeds to prophetic men and women to words and deeds of prophetic people, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. This was to recognize that past prophets who have revealed to us truth and meaning have not all fit within the construct of the gender binary. This includes trans people like Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, whose civil disobedience eventually led to the Pride movement. When I came out in my own home city of Fort Worth as a direct result of my faith making space for me, I was one of maybe a handful of trans or non-binary people that I knew locally. 5 years later, I know dozens, maybe hundreds of them, many of whom have told me that I helped inspire them to live more authentically. Ripples, fractals. In Emergent Strategy, we're invited to envision a world yet to come through the lens of science fiction. The science fiction writer in particular is Octavia Butler. Science fiction writers themselves have often been prophets of their times, with their own imaginative visualizations having eventually become reality. Jules Verne foretold the moon landing 104 years before it happened. Mark Twain wrote a short story of a medium strikingly similar to the internet. H.G. Wells wrote of catastrophe producing uranium based bombs. In novels from the 70s to the 90s, Octavia Butler told stories of worlds ravaged by authoritarianism and climate change, which no longer feel like dystopian fiction in 2022. But she also told stories of the resilient humans who managed to build better societies amidst such chaos. The next piece at the heart of emergent strategy is adaptation. One of the cornerstones of liberal religion, according to Unitarian theologian James Luther Adams, is that revelation is never sealed. God and truth are always in process, constantly changing and being revealed to us. We live in times of unprecedented change. While the disastrous effect of the COVID-19 pandemic and our national response to it should never be minimized, we've seen resilience and innovation emerge from it. We found ways to make church more accessible to those most vulnerable. We reimagined collaborative ways of doing hybridized small and large events. Most recently, our General Assembly in Portland this past June. What I've observed throughout this pandemic is the direct correlation of an institution's ability to live out their mission, center their values, and decenter personalities, and that institution's sustainability through uncertain times. People give time and money to organizations who practice what they preach. It's really that simple. Admittedly, we're not always perfect at that. At your Unitarian Universalist Association, we have a pretty elaborate search system which helps to match ministerial candidates with prospective congregations. This year, more congregations came up empty-handed than ever before, as we've experienced a major shortage in ministers looking for positions. The other day, I was asked by an acquaintance, a Catholic who knew what I did for a living but had very little contextual understanding of UU. She asked me point blank, "Do you guys have a minister shortage right now?" She was privy not only to a shortage in her religious context, but also as an educator. Her observations, there's been a mass exodus of people in and or pursuing all helping professions. Nurses, teachers, ministers, counselors. So in anxious time, our individualistic society seeks both saviors and scapegoats. People to come in with superhero capes and fix all our problems. People to blame when things go wrong. Since by their nature, they lead from a vulnerable place, this burden tends to be placed disproportionately on the shoulders of servant leaders. Adrienne Murray Brown observes that so many of our organizations working from social change are structured in ways that reflect the status quo. We have singular, charismatic leaders, top-down structures, money-driven programs, destructive methods of engaging conflict, and unsustainable work cultures. This results in burnout, overwork, underpay, unrealistic expectations, i.e., this leader is going to come in and help us grow and drive up pledging units when we know long-term sustainable growth is contingent upon an infinite number of factors beyond who's in the pulpit. She also says we get organizational splitting, personal drama, disrupting movements, and stagnation, or our inability to make decisions. This phenomenon is compounded with leaders of marginalized identities, and UU organizations are far from immune. The report from the UUA's Commission on Institutional Change, or Widening the Circle of Concern, tells us what many of us already inherently knew. The turnover rate for leaders, and when I say leaders, I mean ministers, religious professionals, and lay leaders alike, is significantly higher for those who are Black and Indigenous people of color, or BIPOC for short, and or people who are trans identified. Though I'm inching closer to ordination as a UU minister, my plan for the foreseeable future is to remain in my calling of associational ministry rather than congregational ministry. I will certainly never say never, but I did work in a congregation as a religious educator for 5 years. I came out during my tenure in this congregation, and while many were affirming, and many made mistakes in all of their earnestness, which is perfectly natural, I could gradually see a shift in how I was perceived and respected as I went from identifying as male to being openly trans and sometimes presenting more femininely or fluidly. While there had already been some issues because of my age and inexperience, they became exacerbated from this. There was a shift in willingness to respect my own boundaries and personal space, and I was becoming a shell of myself. Associational ministry, on the other hand, while certainly bearing its own challenges, has presented an infrastructure centered in equity and inclusion. The UUA prioritizes employees with multicultural competency and ongoing training to build on it. In my workplace, people use my correct pronouns far more often and never question the validity of my identity nor the pronouns that I use. It's also nice to not feel like 200 people are your boss and that your livelihood is subjected to their every whim. I don't feel like people are keeping tabs on me and scrutinizing my every move. There is a more collaborative, but also a more formal supervisory structure than exists in most congregations. Informal structures privilege those in power. There's also something to be said about the way our broader national culture, rooted heavily in Protestant work ethic, perceives servanthood. The suffering servant archetype has been seen as noble and typical for folks across all helping professions. I think those who've historically gone into helping professions have bought into this nobility and assumed self-sacrifice to be a part of the territory. Until now. I think people of younger generations are setting appropriate boundaries for the sake of their own well-being. Too many teachers I know have been overburdened with polarized politics, infusing the classroom, among other expectations. Nurses overburdened with full hospital beds as the result of negligent state and national governments who unnecessarily politicized a virus for their own self-interests. Institutions, churches included, which center hierarchy and wealth, are imploding in on themselves. The other side of that coin, because it's not all doom and gloom, is that we're seeing new models for equity and collaboration emerge. Some of them based on ancient methods. And those being innovative are the ones not only surviving, but thriving. So I've worked with a couple of congregational boards on using discernment circles for decision making. Everybody takes their turn speaking when a decision is at stake, and consensus building is prioritized. These methods are based in millennia-old practices of indigenous peoples. When I helped model this for a congregational board, meaning everybody got their turn to speak, nobody was talking over each other. Simple but complex, right? Many of the female-identified people in the room remarked, "It's nice to feel like I have a voice for a change." With this in mind, I believe it's time to put our science fiction goggles and imagine what these collaborative and equitable models can look like for the 21st century UU Church and centuries to come. How can we become beloved community even without a minister, or practice truly shared and equitable ministry with a minister? Will we have the courage to recognize that the way we've been doing things is no longer serving us, or never served many in the first place? What could the church and other institutions look like if we moved from competition to collaboration, from power hoarding to power sharing, from individualism to community, from viewing progress as bigger or more to progress as quality and sustainability, from perfectionism to appreciation, from urgency toward understanding? What a powerful church that would be. What a powerful world that would be. And it's within our grasp. May it be so, and amen.
We have time. If there are folks here that would like to have a question or of the group, or to make comments.
I've been thinking a lot about generational choices. And so I thought it was really interesting when he talked about how those service professions, nursing, counseling, and he said, that people have teaching that the burnout, that they take on because it's this role of there's so much nobility in that work and serving, right? And so it's this noble cause, and so you take on more and more, and you martyr yourself to your noble cause, you martyr yourself to the profession. And I don't mean that people are doing it purposefully, it's just it's a pattern, I think, and especially my generation, people before me. But I see in my son who's launching, what he talked about is this ability to set healthier boundaries and say, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to sacrifice my well-being for, a lot of times it's about a profit center that isn't profiting the world. Like, he talks that way. And I think it's so fascinating, and it's a really hard shift. I think I'm really open-minded, and that's what I believe about myself. But I find I'm really bogged down in the structures that I know and that I've lived within. And so I just thought that was really fascinating to put it in the terms of nobility, the nobility of the cause, and how that can be damaging. That was fascinating to me.
So I guess what runs through me is relating it to this bigger shift of like feminine power, like women coming into a sense of power, not because a lot of those positions, those roles have been historically very feminine, and like that taking on that burden and that shifting, but these needs still are there, to heal the sick, to deal with the kids. Like, all those needs are still there and still need to be met. So how can that happen in a healthier, more balanced way? I came across this story in Facebook again this morning, which I've heard before, but supposedly the teacher had, there's this picture of a middle school hallway and there's all these balloons in it. She had all the students blow up a balloon and put their name on it and then let them go. And then she said, okay, find your balloon. And of course it was mayhem, like craziness, and nobody found their balloon. And then she says, okay, grab a balloon and see the name on it and give it to that person. Find that person and give it to them. And it took like 5 minutes for everybody to get their balloon. And it was like a, moral of the story that this can all work better when we collaborate, help the other person, seek for someone else's happiness or for what they need.
We'll now extinguish our chalice with these words written by Mary Oliver. Mary Oliver is an American poet, and she is very often quoted in UU congregations. It's entitled Snow Geese. Oh, to love what is lovely and will not last. What a task to ask of anything or anyone. Yet it is ours, and not by the century or the year, but by the hours. One fall day I heard, above me and above the sting of the wind, a sound I did not know, and my look shot upward. It was a flock of snow geese, winging it faster than the ones we usually see, and, being the color of snow, catching the sun out, so they were, in part at least, golden. I held my breath, as we do sometimes to stop time when something wonderful has touched us, as with a match which is lit and bright, but does not hurt in the common way, but delightfully, as if delight were the most serious thing you ever felt. The geese flew on. I have never seen them again. Maybe I will, someday, somewhere. Maybe I won't. It doesn't matter. What matters is that when I saw them as through the veil, secretly, joyfully, clearly.
Let the weight of the heart, let the weight of the heart, let the weight of the heart shine through. Let the weight of the heart, let the weight of the heart, let the weight of the heart shine through. Love upon love upon love, our hearts are beating as one. Light upon light upon light, shining as bright as the sun. Last time. Let the weight of the heart, let the weight of the heart, let the weight of the heart shine through. Let the weight of the heart, let the weight of the heart, let the weight of the heart shine through. Love upon love upon love, our hearts are beating as one. Light upon light upon light, shining as bright as the sun. Let the weight of the heart, let the weight of the heart, let the weight of the heart shine through.